but do you actually know? And it was just interesting to see that he hasn't had that practice of being consistent at pushing through those fears and continuing to try harder. He doesn't get it the first time and he wants to quit. And it was really interesting because I'm like, oh, is this where I get it? Is this why this has been so hard for me to come out of, my childhood of wanting to quit all the time or throwing a tantrum when I didn't get my way? But it was just very interesting that he's at an age where he's not quite as open to the growth mindset. He doesn't like that he's not good at it. And I said, well, consistency rules. So if you don't do something, you're going to get consistently bad at it because you're not doing it. If you're consistently feeling sorry for yourself and beating yourself up because you should be riding your bike more, but you're not, you're going to get really good at sitting around beating yourself up and not riding your bike. And it was just interesting to see like the 77-year-old man, like, I don't need to learn any more life lessons. I'm like, do you though?
Don't you just hate it when you look at one of your parents and you're like, oh, damn it, that's where I learned that behavior from.
Well, and then to be like, I know more than you about something because I've worked on this for the last decade of my life and you're just now seeing this in yourself. It's pretty interesting. The parent-child dynamic. I work with a lot of women who have, childhood trauma that they're working through, and the bike or the kayak or going through those near-death experiences can really rejuvenate your zest for life and kind of push you into seeking more enlightenment, I think. It's unlike anything. And I said that to my dad. I said, you're feeling frustrated because you're not good at mountain biking right off the couch, but you have to do it to be good at it. And that's what these outdoor sports can teach you is it's no joke. It will show you a mirror. If you don't do it much, you're not going to get good at it. And that's the same with life. If you're consistent at letting your PTSD take over, you're going to get real good at letting your PTSD take over. If I let my depression debilitate me and I'm unable to move off the couch, I'm going to get really good at that. And so that's something I try to preach that is also challenging for me is when I do get into those bouts of depression, just seeking out that 2 seconds of joy is really important, whether it's getting out on my bike or just doing a quick yoga session, but forcing yourself to pick yourself up and do one little thing that brings you a little bit of joy. It takes effort. And, just kind of watching my dad on the bike, I'm like, it takes effort. You can't just say, I want to go for a bike ride twice a year and be good at it. It doesn't work that way.
Week Outdoors Nation, as always, I am lucky enough to be joined by another incredible guest. Somebody whose backdrop, when you see her, will give away what it is that she's most enthusiastic about, because it's probably going to involve 2 pedals, 2 wheels, a handlebar, and a mountain view somewhere. Lindsey has done all sorts of super cool things. She's showing us now. I love it. Done all sorts of super cool things. And at the moment is really heavily focusing on her Ladies AllRide mountain bike camps and loads of other cool stuff. So, Lindsey, welcome to the Week Outdoors podcast.
Well, thanks for having me.
It's our pleasure, all the way from Bend, Oregon. What a beautiful place. I wanted to just kick this off with a really simple but probably hard question of why mountain biking?
Mountain biking is the greatest sport in the world. Duh.
I love it.
Mountain biking is a pretty complex sport. And I think that's what I love about it. I was an athlete in high school, and that's really kind of how I defined myself. Playing sports was how I found my friends. It's how I found fitness. It's how I got my energy out. And when I went off to college, I didn't play sports, and I didn't know at the time, but it really caused me to lose my identity and my sense of self. I had a lot of energy that I didn't know how to get out. And so then fast forward, graduated college, went right into the working world. And I just knew something was missing from my life, and it was fitness, but I didn't really appreciate going to the gym and staring into the mirror. I was a recent college graduate. I was trying to figure out, who I was. And it was just so interesting that I knew a sport was missing from my life, and going to step aerobics in the 90s wasn't that inspiring for me, And I think I saw my dad had bought me a mountain bike to go to college with as my transportation. So that kind of ended up just being my car. And I went to school in Arizona from Oregon. So the cactus was very intimidating. So I really didn't get that into mountain biking in college. But once I was in the working world and I found spin class at the gym, spin class kind of perked my interest in maybe I should do something with cycling, because I enjoy these workouts, but I just didn't want to be in a gym. So I think I saw it in Outside Magazine, maybe in the early 90s, just some photos of people mountain biking. And I decided, you know what? I'm just going to race. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take up mountain bike racing. And I went and bought myself a little race bike, a little hardtail race bike. And this was in my early 20s. And I just threw myself right into racing, really as a way just to help me have a focus to get in shape, and to sort of force me like, well, you have a race this weekend. You have to ride your bike after work every day. And that has turned into the next 20 years of my life, 20 plus years of my life. I have made mountain biking not only my lifestyle, but really my whole world.
That's incredible. When was the ride or the moment with the bike where you were like, this blows my mind. This is me. I found home.
Yeah, at first racing was it was really fun, and there weren't a lot of women involved. And I think it was years later when I got into really traveling for mountain biking. I met and married a pro downhill racer and ended up traveling all over the country for 10 years. And I think at times when I felt like I couldn't keep up with all these pros, and I was feeling defeated and left behind, and like I wasn't good enough, I started realizing how much mountain biking emulates life. There's a lot of symmetry there in how we treat ourselves and how we feel about ourselves. And mountain biking is just one of those sports that it can be really frustrating and also dangerous. If you're doing it with trial by error, it can be really dangerous. And I think kind of partway through some of my summers traveling and racing, I realized, man, this sport is really showing me who I am and what I'm made of. And I started seeing the deeper relationship between me and my bike. Do I throw temper tantrums? Do I blame my bike? Do I blame my partner for me not having a good time because I'm not as good as my partner? It was probably around then, kind of my late 20s, where I started seeing this sport is so much more than just getting outside and riding a bike. It challenges me. It taught me to face fears. It taught me what my failure behavior is. How do you act when you don't get something or when you fail at something? And I think those things really sparked my interest in making sure more women hear these things. Like, yes, it's an intimidating sport. Yes, it can be dangerous, but it's also very enlightening and very empowering when you give into the process and you learn how to go through the motions, take the steps, take the time to practice something and be patient with yourself. So it was really just kind of having the bike bring out my true colors and show me who I am and what I'm made of. And I had choices to make. I could either give up, which it is a really easy sport to quit and just decide, nope, it's too dangerous for me. I'm not going to do it. Or it's a sport that can push you to persevere. And it's a sport you'll never perfect. I think that's what I love most about it is I'm always learning. I'm always growing, no matter how long I've been on a bike or how much experience I have. The sport is constantly teaching me life lessons.
It's incredible. I often find that we're often not very aware about how close we live our life to like a soap opera style, where you blame everything and everybody else for things not working, and you have a fake tantrum or a tantrum, and you abdicate responsibility for yourself and your world. And when you're in the outdoors in the back of nowhere and it goes wrong, like if you didn't prepare your bike well enough, that's on you. And if you're not fit enough, that's on you. And it's it's like growing up on speed. I often think like you have to accept all that responsibility.
Yeah. It's also a sport that really taught me that attitude is a choice. I think growing up and, I'm a white privileged female who probably learned to throw temper tantrums to get my way at a young age. And there's no room for that in mountain biking. A temper tantrum's not going to help you get over that rock garden any easier. You have to actually slow down, figure it out, and take the time to learn it. And I just love that about this sport. If you throw a temper tantrum and freak out, you're not going to get very far, And so I love to tell a lot of women, I know this is an easy sport to quit, but it will also test your strength and your ability to persevere. And choosing your attitude is a big part of it. We actually rode just a couple of days ago and didn't know what the conditions were going to be like. And we got halfway out on this trail and it was so muddy. Our wheels would barely turn. And at this point, there was so much mud in our chains and in our bikes and on our shoes that we just had to sit down on the side of the trail, clean all that mud off so the bikes weren't so heavy, pick the bikes up, carry them on our backs, and scale up the side of a hill to get to the road to extract ourselves from our mission. And, all that mud can hurt the bike. We're 3 women out there and we're just laughing and enjoying the process. And that's when we kind of looked at each other and said, this is what it means to choose your attitude. We could have been super bummed out that we had to hike out and that our bikes got all muddy and that we had to go clean them and that our ride didn't go as planned. But the fact that we were out there with our girlfriends, hanging out in the outdoors, dealing with the elements, the adventure alone was the fun. It didn't have to be a perfect adventure. Now we have a story in how we got mud bogged down and had to climb out and ride the road down on this trail that we barely knew. And that's the adventure for me. It's not about having the perfect ride or having everything go smoothly. It's about dealing with things that go wrong and how you handle it. And that ability to choose your attitude and go from being upset that you're stuck in the mud to I'm just out here with my friends. I'd rather be doing this than shopping or just, hanging out at the house on a Sunday. It just really enlightens me to teach more women how attitude can be a choice and it can make or break your ride or your day in life.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've got a good friend who says he's done lots of very cool expeditions all over the world in boats, on foot, all sorts of things. And he often says that there's no such thing as adventure without risk to life and limb. That's one of his quotes. His other
totally
that anybody can have a great attitude when the sun's shining and the world's going great. He's like, but the outdoors and adventure, well, A, it's not perfect, or it's kind of perfectly imperfect. But B, when you're knackered and when it's going against you, that's when you develop a character, your character. That's where you make decisions about who you really are, not the facade that we all have, the real version of you. Such a powerful place to be. Wait, where do you find yourself most tested? I mean, let's be honest. Let's have a quick chat about that. Where you could just pick the bike up, throw it in the ditch, and have a tantrum about it. Like, what's the threshold?
I think for me, it's if I'm bonking. If I'm out on a really long ride and the legs just won't work, and you have a long way to go, and you see that big climb up ahead. But even in those scenarios, I've learned to just enjoy the process and to enjoy the fact that I'm able to push my body to the point that it is fully shutting down and I can barely move. I also kind of relish in that masochism, I kind of look around and go, well, not many people push their bodies to the point where they feel like they can barely move. So I try and celebrate that as well. Definitely, it can be scary when it's getting dark. And I ride a lot in the big mountains in Colorado. And I've definitely been pushed a few times on these, you're going up to 12,000 feet. So the breathing is a bit labored. It takes me a bit more time to acclimate. So I think that those big rides up in the high altitude where you're struggling to catch your breath and your body just doesn't feel the same that it feels at lower altitude, those are moments that definitely test my breaking point, where I would love to just have a helicopter come extract me and take me to a bubble bath. But again, once you finish the ride, there's a sense of accomplishment that you're just like, well, I didn't give up. I got out. I may have been crawling at the end, but there's a sense of pride in just keeping going. So it's pretty hard to break me. I would say I'm more easily broken when it comes to like human interaction and people disappointing me versus anything that has to do with the physical exertion. I live for that.
So you mentioned, and I really liked what you said about the enjoying the process, right? You're there and you've just got to go and make one foot go in front of the other, really, like make it keep the bike moving. What do you have any strategies? Because lots of people say like love the process, love the journey. I mean, there's so it's said very often, and I'm always hunting for like practical things that people do to actually enjoy it. Like when I end up humming kids' nursery rhymes to myself for no apparent reason at all. Like if you're happy and you know it, that does come out. Like that's a guilty secret that's just been shared in front of millions of people. But there we go.
I love it.
But like, what is there that you have tucked up that helps you maybe stay present or change your mindset or I don't know, keep that bike moving?
Yeah, that's one of our mottos in mountain biking is what do I need to do to keep the wheels rolling forward? And that pertains to your physical body and how you move the bike and how you adjust your balance point. But it also pertains to the mental ability you have to think thoughts that serve you, thoughts that keep you moving forward. And, that's the reason I love mountain biking so much. And I see how much it relates to life is that your thoughts dictate your strength. Your thoughts dictate how much your body is willing to push. And usually our thoughts stop us before our body does. And so I think I've learned to just be really in tune with my body and to start changing my thoughts when I feel that burning sensation and I feel like I can't climb anymore, but I have to keep going. I have no choice. I try to imagine kind of what my muscles are going through and that having negative thoughts of wanting to quit is not going to help my body stay strong. I also am learning later in life the connection between the mind and the body. We tell women during our lessons, if you look where you want to go with your eyes are telling your body, to go there. The eyes tell the brain to tell the body, I'm going there and I'm doing whatever it takes to get there. But I've definitely also been known to sing songs, definitely songs that go along with what I'm feeling, like burn, baby, burn. When you feel the burn in your legs and just kind of get on repeat, or I will survive, I will stay alive. Whatever you can do to flip that mindset from feeling devastated and tired and exhausted to joyous and excited and proud. Those are some of my tricks. And also if I'm with a bunch of other women, I don't want to show them giving up because I'm trying to encourage people not to give up. But I'm also a believer that there's certain times where you just got to call it and be okay with that. So again, it's back to that mind shift, that mindset shift and that positive attitude that even if you have to walk down that section of trail because you're so tired, be proud that you're even out there on the bike enjoying the great outdoors. I think that is something that really fuels me, is just stopping to look around and breathe in the fresh air and see no other people on the trail, and that there's so many people in this world everywhere we go. But for some reason, you get out on a mountain bike trail and you don't see anyone. You just feel like you're on top of the world. You're the only person in the world out there. And that can totally bring me back from being miserably in pain to, wow, I'm up in the mountains and this is pretty cool where my bike can take me.
Yeah, it's important, isn't it? Just to stop on occasions and breathe and just have a look at the scenery, at the view, at the everything else, and take it all in. Because one of the things I've noticed with some mountain bikers I've interviewed is they're going so quickly through the terrain that it's such a blur they don't actually really recall the rest of the experience. Like, yes, you get the biking experience, but there's so much more to it than that.
Totally. Yes.
So much more. So, what was there anything in childhood that led you to the point of, like, how did your parents bring you up? Or because it sounds like you tried a proper job and a proper career and they said that's not for me. and then broke free of that mold. Like, was there anything throughout your childhood that empowered you to say, screw it, I'm not doing what everybody else thinks I should do. Mountain biking's for me?
I was raised to play, for sure. Was raised in the outdoors. Sports were our life. I grew up riding horses and galloping around the neighborhood and playing in the creek. It's funny because I was just recently reading my baby book that my mom took notes in. And there's multiple different spots that say she's very strong-willed. She likes to climb on and jump off everything. And that I'm coy and cute enough to learn how to get my way at a young age. So even just reading that, I was like, oh, wow. Okay. I've always just kind of had a mind of my own. It's funny because I've been having these conversations with my dad a lot because my mom has Alzheimer's. So it's been pretty challenging to kind of see her go through. She remembers our past, but can't remember the daily things. So bringing up the past a lot with her is kind of her comfort zone. And so I have been reminiscing with my mom a lot lately about how I always wanted to be outside. And she said the minute the door would open, I would run. I wouldn't walk through the door. And so I think when I got into the working world, I was in advertising and PR. So it was a lot of deadlines and late nights, and it was kind of a grind in my early 20s. And getting out and racing my bike brought this newfound life force to me. It really gave me purpose and something to focus on. And as I looked back in my life, I realized that there were a lot of sports I probably could have been really good at, but I just didn't try very hard. It came kind of easily to me. Mountain biking has forced me to try really hard at something. And it gave me this desire to be good because it was hard to be good. You can't just jump on a mountain bike and go ride the gnarliest terrain. It takes time to learn it. And so I think that's kind of what drew me away from corporate America, was just this feeling of needing to be free and not being trapped by someone else's schedule or expectations of me. But I didn't really know what that meant. That's kind of when I ended up on the TV show Survivor. I was laid off from my advertising job, and this new TV show had just come out. This was in like 2001. And my neighbor in the office next to me handed me the application. I hadn't even heard of it. And there was something about it that just called me towards it. I read this application, and it was like, they're going to put you in the middle of somewhere, we don't know where, and you're going to have to survive and do all these physical challenges. And I thought, okay, this is right up my alley, some sort of sporting thing on TV. And so I feel like going on the TV show Survivor and kind of living that lifestyle for a year of being on the road and going on these press tours, and I don't know, just sort of this freedom, it taught me that I guess I don't have to have just a regular 9-to-5 job if I don't want to. It showed me that I can invent what I do for a living. And also meeting my husband, who became my ex-husband, that's a whole nother story. He also taught me that you can create what you do for a living. And it was thanks to really him and his drive to become a pro mountain biker. It showed me that if you put your mind to something, you can make whatever happen. And I knew that I needed to do something out in the outdoors. And I knew that I needed to do something with mountain biking. It just took me about a decade to realize coaching and teaching mountain biking was my path. I didn't realize that until my late 30s. So I guess, if I were to give someone advice, following your heart and what makes you happy, by just entering into mountain bike races, that was following my heart. And then I found so much more that came with that. So mountain bike racing, the discipline, being in the outdoors, and being around a lot of like-minded people who were working in the bike industry kind of showed me that, wow, I was raised in a generation of, what are you going to be when you grow up? You pick what you're going to be, and then that's what you are. Because that's how my dad lived, and I really enjoy that we're kind of this generation of, wait, we don't have to fit into this box. We don't have to do one thing with our lives. We can jump around and try new things and always be learning and growing. And I think that's what really drew me towards it, was that much like mountain biking, living this kind of a lifestyle is a bit of a hustle. It takes time and patience and failure and getting up when you fall down. And I really like that. And no one else is in charge of me but myself. And that's pretty empowering because I think I work a little bit harder when I know that it's just me I have to please, you know?
That's epic. I was just thinking as you're talking there, I think we're probably of a similar age. And my parents, when they were going through, let's say, high school, they knew they knew what job they were going to go and do, and the job was pretty much there for my dad until he retired. Do you know what I mean? It was the obvious thing. But then I think when I started high school, doing what I do now for a job didn't exist. It wasn't there. And I think you're right. We're the first generation of people who are doing jobs that have no framework, or earning a living maybe, or living a life that there was no framework for this 20 years ago. And it's fortunate because you get to design your own framework. And that's also challenging because you have to design your own framework because there's nobody else's to easily follow.
No, it's so true. And that's also been a source of frustration, is feeling a little lost at times. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not cut out to be a business owner. I'm lucky to have great teammates because I feel like running a business is all about the team. And I have an amazing group of women and we're super open and honest and communicative. And it's a really great thing. But it can be scary and it can really test your resilience when you get into these states of fear. I'm going to lose it all. Or what happens if this doesn't work out? What am I going to do? Go get a job with another company? But again, I can relate it all to mountain biking and how I deal with that fear of mountain biking. You can't be staring at that rock thinking about what your face might look like if you hit the rock. That's not going to help you get through. You've got to be thinking thoughts that help the wheels and your body get through, and not letting any of those fear-based thoughts get in, because that can cause reactions in the body. If I let fear get in, I might grab the brakes at the wrong time or steer into the wrong thing. But when I keep my mind focused on where I want to go and what I need to do to keep the wheels rolling, that keeps me in the present moment. So running a business is much like mountain biking. You've got to stay in the present moment and do everything that you can right here, right now, to keep moving forward.
It's incredible you say that. I was on being interviewed on TV this afternoon, and I've actually still got some of the makeup on, actually, believe it or not, because I literally ran straight in, ate food, and came to you. So it's been crazy. So I still got makeup on, which is all a bit weird. I'm not used to that. But one of the questions, or one of the things they were talking about is what's the parallels between business and the outdoors and adventure sports. And I was saying exactly the same thing. It is business is problem solving at speed. And whether you're hurtling down a whitewater river like I used to, or going down a massive downhill section or boulder garden like you're used to on your bike, the world is moving faster than the brain is maybe used to. And you've got to solve those problems and pull it all together. Do you find it gives you a new level of confidence about who and how you are?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. I use mountain biking as a way to really remind myself of what I'm capable of. And that's one of my biggest missions with this movement, with Ladies AllRide, coaching women, teaching women how to mountain bike. We do integrate a lot of the life skills that mountain biking brings into your life at our camps. I just love that about this sport, that, you can get frustrated and want to give up, but when you don't, it feels really good. And I can use those moments when I do get frustrated or get scared in business. I try to imagine myself back on the bike at a section of trail that I'm scared of. What would I do? I would walk through it. I would see how my bike reacts to it. I would weigh the risk versus reward. And then I would be proud of myself with whatever decision I made. If I decided I didn't want to ride a gnarly section of trail and I walked it instead, again, back to that attitude choice. Well, at least I'm out here. At least I'm doing it. I feel like I have to apply that to business. Every time I get frustrated or nervous, I have to just keep the wheels rolling forward and think of the best strategy to get myself out of that fear-based state of mind. And I think that can be really challenging for people when they do feel fear. For instance, when I went through divorce, that was very scary. I was with someone for 15 years from my late 20s to early 40s. So that was super scary. And to be able to find the confidence in myself, to believe in myself that I will be okay on my own, I tapped into mountain biking for that as well. Look what you're capable of. You are capable of anything you put your mind to. And so that's really a big mission I have with Ladies AllRide, is to not only help women advance their mountain bike skills, but more importantly, to help women see for themselves what they're capable of. I think as women, we're pretty heavy overthinkers and we strive for perfection because, I'm in my late 40s and we are the generation of, everything has to be perfect. And we're learning that perfection isn't real. And so we say that a lot at our mountain bike camps: progression, not perfection. If you're progressing even the tiniest little bit, you just got your wheel up an inch more than you did last time, that is progression. You are moving forward. So tapping into those mountain bike skills and how far I've come by believing in myself and seeing what I'm capable of, which just leads to more accomplishments, is really how I get my mind back to center, which is what we say on the bike. Anytime the bike gets away from you, move your body back to center. Stay centered and grounded to keep the wheels rolling. It all relates.
Somebody once said to me, keep your head above your butt and life will be good, which I guess doesn't work around
your head out of your ass.
That's it. Yeah. That's it. It doesn't work while going around a fast corner, but the rest of the time, head above your butt is like, I've got it. I can hold that piece of simple information.
Totally. I love it.
That's it. So you've mentioned Ladies AllRide a bunch of times, and we'll get into a bit more about what it is and other things in a while. But what was it for you that triggered you to decide that you'd want to focus on the niche of females who want to go biking, as opposed to just, there's a market out there for you just to coach biking to kids, parent, anybody. What was it about that niche of females who go biking?
Well, I realized throughout my travels over the course of a decade, I would go to these big races and I would meet women, but they were all racing. And there was an intimidation factor for me. I wasn't ever going to be a super gnarly pro racer. I raced because I loved it. But once I got involved in the real pro scene where they were racing for money and they were big time, it became a little more intimidating to me. And so I feel like as I started to ask around, where are all the women who just want to ride for fun? I was hearing stories from partners. Well, I invited my lady on a ride and she crashed and she's over it. And the more stories I heard, the more I realized, well, what pieces of advice are you giving her? I never heard about men not enjoying the sport or getting into it and quitting. It was always a story about women and why women were giving up really easily. And so over the course of this decade, I just kept my eyes open. And at every event or we'd stop at shops and go ride with fans of my ex-husbands. And I was always the only female. And I started to really feel what it felt like. I never minded being the quote unquote token girl on the rides, because I always sort of related to boys growing up from the athletic perspective. But I started craving wanting girls around because I was the one in the back who was left by myself. And I just started realizing this is it right here. This is why there aren't more women in this sport, because guys are okay kind of going out and muscling through and maybe being guided by ego a little bit, where women are more sensitive. And if they have an experience that isn't favorable, it's easy to say, you know what, this isn't for me. And so I set my sights on coaching women because I wanted to include the emotional component in it. I wanted to advertise my camps as a place to come and be vulnerable and feel fear with a bunch of other women who are supporting you and encouraging you and have gone through the same thing. Plus, we're just different species, kind of. We're different learners,
I'm listening to you. And if I'm to be really honest, machoism turns me off big time. If you want to see me underperform, a macho environment will do that. But if it can be fun and positive, and there can be laughter involved, and I won't say caring. I don't know if that was the word I meant to say, but caring. I really personally thrive. I thrive. Yeah, nurturing. That's a beautiful word. I thrive in that environment. And so I always end up with gender-specific programs with a dichotomy in my head, because I think you're right. There is a stereotype of your guys who they feed off the ego and the macho nonsense. I equally think there's millions of me kicking around who actually, when I was a sponsored kayaker for many years and did some very big expeditions. And I had the opportunity to join some kayakers who were American, and it was very much fit in or F off, macho everything, celebrated the near-death experiences where I was like, wow, we shouldn't be celebrating that. We should be working out how to avoid it happening again. Do you know what I mean? It should be, and I avoided that group. If I'd have kayaked with that group, I either would have died or I would have had a much longer, more successful career, but it just turned me off. And so I'm just very curious about how these, I'd like to propose that there's actually more space in men's biking for good quality coaching than maybe we realize, as well as, and definitely space for females being coached as well. I think there's space for some more difference.
For sure. We find through, I've been coaching full time now for over 10 years, and it's just a different style of learning. We do actually have a company called Grit Clinics that coaches men, because we saw a need for men to also get lessons. We didn't want to exclude men from getting lessons. We just found that women learn better and are more relaxed when they're learning amongst a group of like-minded women. It's a different dynamic. Women need more details. They want to talk more. They want to listen more. We do get right down to it and get them moving on their bike. But in my experience, while men are also great to coach, I love coaching men, it's a different dynamic. I need to move a little faster, keep them moving a little more, talk a little less. But there's also this dynamic, if she can do it, I can do it, that resonates with women. Many of us have seen men do things on a bike that we just think, well, I'm never going to do that canyon gap jump and land backwards. The things that they show men doing. Now, while there's plenty of women doing free ride stuff and doing amazing things on their bike, that's not super attractive to the majority. And I wanted to make sure that women felt really comfortable and welcome entering into a sport from the basic level up. Now we get a lot of advanced riders who are ready to take their riding to the next level, and we totally accommodate that. But my mission with the company was to invite more women into this sport in a welcoming way where they knew it was just going to be women supporting them. And when we do coach men's clinics, it's super fun, but it's harder to read men, I find. Women are super expressive, and not all of them, but there's a little more verbal affirmations like, oh yeah, I got that, I'm stoked. Where I find when I coach men, they're a little quieter about it. And as a woman coach myself, I'm like, give me something. Are you getting this? You having fun? So separating them, I think, is really good in the learning environment. And because when you do bring them together, the different styles of learning just don't always complement each other. Now, with that said, I've also coached a lot of couples, and I think it's really endearing watching couples work together and work through it, especially if they have a coach guiding them into staying away from the ego, slowing down, learning how to support each other. A lot of guys want to learn how to coach or what to say to their partner, or women with women partners. Sometimes one partner's a little more athletic than the other. So we're not only coaching these people in how to ride and how to think and how to deal with themselves, we're also hoping that they'll pay it forward and give good advice so that we can stop this trend of just go faster and pull up, giving advice that doesn't really mean anything.
When you teach
Which
something,
a lot of people tend to do. Just go faster. You got it. Your bike knows what to do. You're like, no, it doesn't. Does it?
Yeah, it doesn't. Well, I don't know. Some people might believe their bike has got a brain of its own on occasions and is
totally
is in charge. What's when you're working with your female clients in the AllRide, what's that number one tip that you find yourself giving them the most that really is the game changer for them?
I think teaching people how to think is a big game changer. Teaching them, you've got to go through the steps in what needs to happen. So if you see a line on a trail that looks scary, ask yourself, what's the worst that could happen? Or what am I scared of happening? I don't want to go over the bars and hit my face. I don't want to break a limb. Sometimes it helps to actually think of the worst case scenario and then go backwards. Okay, what is the process that I need to go through? What are the moves I need to make to prevent that from happening? I don't want to go over the bars, so I need to stay light in my hands. I need to look ahead and I need to keep the wheels rolling. I think just teaching women that there is a way out of that fear-based state of mind has really helped women see the light in mountain biking, because they see themselves a little bit deeper when we teach them this. Like, oh, do I do this in life? I'm unhappy in my job, or I'm in an unhealthy relationship. I'm scared to get out. Wow, I didn't realize that was fear. What would I do on my mountain bike? I would take a step back. I would walk through the process of how I'm going to get through this to get to the other side. I think that has been pretty mind-blowing for a lot of women, just learning to change their thoughts. And coming from someone who I've dealt with depression my whole life, and having a condition like depression is super confusing, especially when you're told your whole life, I don't understand, you have nothing to be sad about. That has caused me to grow up thinking there's something wrong with my brain. And I've met a lot of women who feel the same way. And when you think there's something wrong with you, you don't know that if there's a cure. But in mountain biking, when you learn this process in changing your thoughts from fear-based to positive thoughts to keep you moving forward, I feel like it really just shows you it's possible. I can change those thoughts, but I have to be aware of them first. And a sport like mountain biking can really illuminate those thoughts. Like, I physically feel scared right now. I don't want to get hurt. Well, duh, that's why we get scared in life. We don't want to get hurt. We don't want to fail. We don't want to put ourselves in a position to feel all the terrible emotions. But that's part of the process too, is to work through all that and to feel what you're feeling and deal with it. So that's, another reason I just love this sport so much, is it can really illuminate what you're thinking. And mindfulness just sort of became a buzzword in the last couple of years. And I didn't grow up being taught mindfulness. And now when I get into a situation in life where my brain's kind of going crazy, I'm like, whoa, hold on. If you were on your bike right now, you wouldn't let all these thoughts come tumbling in. You would control them. So I really like how mountain biking can teach people how to control their thoughts, because it is possible.
It's interesting what you're saying is when I'm working, I often talk to people about the idea of chunking. And there's a section of trail, for instance, where you're thinking, oh, I'm not good enough. It's too dangerous. This could happen. The problem is, though, that you're looking at the whole section. And if you chunk it apart into lots of small sections, and can I do the first 10 yards? Yes, good, check, perfect. Can I do the next 10 yards? Yeah, but the next 10 yards after that's got a crux in it. Okay, cool. So how do I need to arrive at the crux? And the moment you start chunking it down, suddenly you regain control. And I think that's what happens with, me and depression are friends as well. So, actually PTSD and me are friends, but that's a different story. But
okay. Yeah.
I had a big moment about 25 years ago where I didn't live. But that's a long, complicated other story.
Wow.
But when I'm feeling like that overwhelm, when I chunk it back down to, can I make a positive difference for myself in any way, shape, or form in the next 10 yards, 5 minutes, 30 seconds? The answer is always yes. And then, well, do you reckon you could do, it's a challenge, isn't it? Do you reckon you could do the next one and do it positively as well? Oh, yes. And there's a really hard bit just there, but if you approach it right, you can stack the odds in your favor. Do you then think you could do that? Oh, and suddenly the world becomes clear again. But that's the gift of adventure sport, I think.
It is. It is. It's unparalleled guide. It really is. It's really an unparalleled way to strengthen your resolve. And it's funny because I took my dad on a ride last night, and he's the one who got me into mountain biking. He's the one who every time I'd come home from college would want to go ride these fire roads. And then he just stopped somewhere along the way. He just stopped, and he's always messaging me, let's go for a bike ride. Okay, let's go for a bike ride. And so I take him on just this paved path to start, and then wanted to put him on just a little section of trail. And he was struggling and he was giving up at the rocks. And it was interesting because, you know, your parents, you tend to put them on this pedestal. They're your parents. They can do no wrong. But I get my dad out on a mountain bike now. And just like I feel when I'm coaching women, the true colors really come out. And I'm looking back at my dad going, he is fear-based. He is letting fear, like they weren't hard rocks. You could roll right over them, but to just watch that initial reaction of fear and then the giving up and then getting frustrated. And I said, well, if you were consistent and you did it a little more, those rocks wouldn't feel as intimidating. And he gave me the middle finger. And I was like, oh my gosh, this must have been what it was like raising me. I remember him teaching me to ski or play tennis. And I would always say, I know. And I said to him, well, if you just look ahead and keep the wheels rolling. And he said, I know. I'm like, but do you actually know? And it was just interesting to see that he hasn't had that practice of being consistent at pushing through those fears and continuing to try harder. He doesn't get it the first time and he wants to quit. And it was really interesting because I'm like, oh, is this where I get it? Is this why this has been so hard for me to come out of, you know, my childhood of wanting to quit all the time or throwing a tantrum when I didn't get my way? But it was just very interesting that he's at an age where he's not quite as open to the growth mindset. He doesn't like that he's not good at it. And I said, well, consistency rules. So if you don't do something, you're going to get consistently bad at it because you're not doing it. If you're consistently feeling sorry for yourself and beating yourself up because you should be riding your bike more, but you're not, you're going to get really good at sitting around beating yourself up and not riding your bike. And it was just interesting to see like the 77-year-old man, like, I don't need to learn any more life lessons. I'm like, do you though?
Don't you just hate it when you look at one of your parents and you're like, oh, damn it, that's where I learned that behavior from.
Well, and then to be like, I know more than you about something because I've worked on this for the last decade of my life and you're just now seeing this in yourself. It's pretty interesting. The parent-child dynamic. I work with a lot of women who have, you know, childhood trauma that they're working through, and the bike or the kayak or going through those near-life, you know, near-death experiences can really rejuvenate your zest for life and kind of push you into seeking more enlightenment, I think. It's unlike anything. And I said that to my dad. I said, you're feeling frustrated because you're not good at mountain biking right off the couch, but you have to do it to be good at it. And that's what these outdoor sports can teach you is it's no joke. It will show you a mirror. If you don't do it much, you're not going to get good at it. And that's the same with life. If you're consistent at letting your PTSD take over, you're going to get real good at letting your PTSD take over. If I let my depression debilitate me and I'm unable to move off the couch, I'm going to get really good at that. And so that's something I try to preach that is also challenging for me is when I do get into those bouts of depression, just seeking out that 2 seconds of joy is really important, whether it's getting out on my bike or just doing a quick yoga session, but forcing yourself to pick yourself up and do one little thing that brings you a little bit of joy. It takes effort. And, you know, just kind of watching my dad on the bike, I'm like, it takes effort. You can't just say, I want to go for a bike ride twice a year and be good at it. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah. a psychological myth out there, actually, that's around the concept of maintenance. And if you speak to neuroscientists, they'll tell you that maintenance is a myth. So either you're getting better or you're getting worse, and there is no stable ground in the middle. And I think there's like a societal lie that a lot of us have been allowed to believe that you can just maintain it and stay on this level playing field. And I firmly don't believe that that's the case. You've either got to be going forwards or you're going backwards. Certainly that helps for me.
Totally.
Now, moving away from biking, you've mentioned the show Survivor, and you ended up in it as a career bit was stopping. You thought you'd go and do something else. Now, many people have seen the show Survivor. Many people may even have seen you on Survivor. They never know. I suppose the question I've got for you is, a show like Survivor is showing the best of and the worst of you and not the whole of you to the rest of the world. How do you deal with that? Because you want people to know Lindsey, and they're not getting to know Lindsey. They're getting to see you 35 seconds of joy followed by 3.5 minutes of hardship. That's a struggle. Like, how did all that play out for you?
Totally. It's a pretty significant turning point in my life, to be honest. It illuminated my personality for sure. And while they can edit the show to manipulate situations, they can't edit how you behave. And I was a wreck. I was a 25-year-old run by emotion, very low self-awareness, low self-esteem. And so I was pretty combative. And that caused the world to ridicule me publicly. And granted, we weren't on the show when social media was a thing. Thank goodness. Social media didn't come around for like 7 more years. That's how long ago this was. And I think that could have killed me. I really do. I think dealing with depression and low self-esteem, if I would have had to read tweets and posts about me all the time, that would have killed me. But there were chat rooms, and we all were turned on to these chat rooms, and we could read what people were saying about us in these chat rooms. And there was a lot of hate against me. And already dealing with low self-esteem, that knocked me to another level. Plus, I moved to LA from Portland to explore my options as a reality TV star. And it was brutal. I mean, we were just nobodies in LA, and we got rung through the ringer. But it also sparked me to want to ride my bike more as a means to feel good. So that's really when biking became more significant in my life, was when I was living in LA, going to auditions, dealing with all the Survivor backlash. I would go ride my mountain bike, and I would think no one else is out here riding a mountain bike. No one else from my show is out here riding a mountain bike. It really made me feel strong and empowered. But I sank to an all-time low when I was living in LA, because I thought, well, I'm being rejected in LA. I'm being rejected by fans on TV. Where do I fit in this world now? What do I do? Just go get a job again? And biking really saved my life. It really kept reminding me that I have a purpose. And there was something in the back of my head saying, you're going to do something with mountain biking. And this was in 2002. I was just barely tapping the surface of mountain biking. And I knew that there was something about this sport that was going to save me, and that I was going to use it to help save others.
I honestly don't think that, we'll just call them internet trolls, shall we? But I honestly don't think they stop to think for longer than, no, they don't stop and think at all about their two sentences that they type and what genuine impact it can actually have on somebody. I think they're just like, I want to blow off steam, so I'm just going to say as I please because it's anonymous. To the point now, by the way, where I don't I don't look at any of the comments on any of our social media stuff that goes out anywhere. Maybe I should do. I don't want to read it. I don't want to see it. I'm not interested. Kat, who contacted you, she sends me the good stuff. And I know there's bad stuff, and that's fine. It's the problem, I suppose, Lindsey, and you did it on Survivor. It's when you put your head above the parapet or lift yourself out of the trench in a war, you're going to get shot at. And I don't think that people tell us that stuff beforehand. It's just like, yeehaw, here's a great opportunity. And it's not till after the great opportunity where you're like, whoa, nobody briefed me on that.
Totally. Yeah, I get it. I mean, it's not great for my mental health to spend too much time on social media. I'm on there just to promote mountain biking as a lifestyle and a life-changing sport. But definitely have had to learn to be strong through the trolls and to understand. I just got a message the other day on Facebook that said, I just watched your season of Survivor. You were awful. I'm so glad you didn't win. And I just wrote back, that was just not nice. Like, that was just unkind. I am a human here. That was 20 years ago. And the fact that you're sending me a message right now to tell me I was horrible tells me that you have something going on in your life that you don't feel good about, because I'm not going to take that energy on anymore. You can tell me I was horrible 20 years ago if that makes you feel better in some way. But I've learned to look on to the other side. Like, what is this person going through that they felt that they hated me this much on some freaking TV show that I was on 20 years ago, that they had to find me on Facebook to tell me how awful I was. That's not about me. That person probably related to me and is like, oh man, I do that stuff too. I'm going to tell her she's awful, and that's going to make me feel better about my shitty self. But I've just learned to say, you know what? That wasn't kind at all, because I'm a human that is a much different person than I was 20 years ago. And the fact that you're telling me right now that I was awful, you got something going on, girl.
You've almost got to adopt that mentality that if somebody can take the time and effort to write something really negative, that you've almost got to feel sorry for them. Their life must be far worse than yours if they've got that nothing better to do with their time than slate another human being. Their life must be significantly worse than yours. And I know feeling sorry for them, well, I don't know whether that's the right thing or not, but pitying them certainly seems to be something that I could say, yeah, that would make a degree of sense. I don't want to go down a rabbit hole, but I think social media has got a lot of positives in life. But I would suggest that for every positive, there's a unhealthy negative on the other side as well.
For sure. And I just hope more people can see, what these kinds of sports, I'm on there to promote this sport as a life-changing activity. And people like that, I got to just assume they're not really doing much with their lives that fuels their passion or fulfills something inside of them that makes them feel good or feel joy. And so, it's taken me a long time to be okay with that kind of the Survivor criticism. I'm going to be more sensitive about mountain biking now because it's current in my life. And I don't get a lot of negative feedback with the mountain biking stuff anyway, so I don't really have to worry about it. But it's been interesting how I've had to take all these lessons that I teach people and use them in my own way. And I think that that's a big reason I'm so passionate about what I do, is half the time I'm spewing out these life lessons because I'm still learning them. And because of my story, I didn't grow up in some tragic environment. I had a great life. But dealing with mental health can change your perception of yourself. And from an outside perspective, you're right. I have nothing to be sad about, but that doesn't mean that my brain chemicals work in a way like everyone else's do. And so I just wish more people would see that you can actually change your brain chemistry by getting outside and breathing in that fresh air and having those mindful moments where you're fully present, you're in the moment, you're only thinking about what needs to happen And even just going for a walk outside can be powerful, but a sport like mountain biking or like you did kayaking, you cannot drift off. You can't be thinking about all the things you have to do. You have to be focused on only what needs to happen on the water beneath you or the trail beneath you, looking where you want to go. Otherwise, you'll get hurt. So it is such a great life lesson for people to get out and try these sports, have a beginner mindset, do things you're scared of, because all those things only enlighten you and strengthen you as a human to be able to deal with life. I don't know where I would be without the outdoors teaching me what it's taught me. I wouldn't have learned half of this stuff without actually experiencing it and feeling it from my core, not just hearing advice from someone. I didn't really listen to people, but the mountain bike and the outdoors, it kind of forces you to either learn or get hurt.
It's very fair, isn't it? And very equitable. Like if you can be Bill Gates and you could be a homeless person, but if we're all on the same trail biking at the same time and it's raining, we're all going to get wet. Like it is so leveling. And I know that there's inequality within the outdoors, but I also know that the outdoors itself as a place is so equal. It doesn't care who you are. It doesn't care what you're thinking. Doesn't care whether you're happy or nothing. If it's going to rain, it's going to rain, and we're all going to have to get through it together. And that's just how it is. On the subject of depression, by the way, I read a book the other day, and this is about all sorts of things. But they were saying that depression and PTSD is actually a hypersensitivity to what's going on around you in the world. You're actually much more in tune with the rest of the world than everybody else. And everybody else's emotions are dull and sanitized. And people who struggle with those things, it isn't actually a struggle. It's just an overwhelm because you're so much more in tune with the world. And the question I've been wrestling with in my head, so I'll share it with you. And this really wasn't where I was going to with this podcast, but now we're here, we may as well be here. Is what if it's your superpower?
Depression?
Yeah. What if it's your superpower? As opposed to maybe for what purpose has it happened for you? Would be another way of thinking about it. And I've been playing tennis with that in my head for a week now. So I don't know what you think, but like, what if it's a superpower?
I really like that. I just read something recently that said sensitive people just feel more deeply, are more in tune with the vibrations of the earth, because I do believe that we are all energy. And I've been reading all kinds of stuff on this, the untethered soul. I'll listen to anything Oprah has to say. And she definitely talks a lot about how we're energy, and this energy is a vibration that we can feel on other people. We can sense energy. And so I have had to sit back. And when I make a welcome speech at my camps, the first thing I do is I welcome everyone and I say, we're all vulnerable here together. You're not the only vulnerable ones learning mountain biking in an environment where you don't know anyone. We're also vulnerable as coaches. We have to perform in front of you and perform in a way that you can understand and you can manage. And we may not get it right. We may not make that climb. We may fall in front of you, And so I try to set the stage that vulnerability is a good thing. And when I do hear myself telling my story, I've dealt with depression. Mountain biking has really helped me with my mental health. It's really showed me how to be more aware of my thoughts and how to handle my thoughts. I wouldn't have this big of an impact, I think, without understanding it all. I think depression has helped me be a voice for other women who deal with depression, which a lot of people in this world deal with depression. And it's been something that was hard to talk about for a long time. Even my dad admitted, like, we just swept everything under the rug. He came from Germany. We don't talk about emotion. We just carry on. And I think that dealing with so much emotion, I even told my dad, I said, you used to tell me, oh, you ruined another Christmas because I threw a temper tantrum. And I said, looking back, it would have been nice to have parents that are like, wow, she's feeling really deeply right now. Let's get to the root of what she's feeling. And so dealing with it without having support or anyone around me who understood what was going on, I was forced to figure this out on my own and to stop thinking there was something wrong with me and start finding a solution for it. Much like mountain biking, you could just say, well, I suck, or you could practice those wheel lifts in a grass field. So I am seeing how in mountain biking, being a beginner at something or with anything in life is a really good way to go through life, because you have to start from the beginning and give yourself grace and be kind to yourself and patient with yourself while you learn the process. And I think a lot of adults are uncomfortable getting into those situations where they're beginners again and they're not good at something right away. And I can use my experience with depression to tell people I've always thought I was bad at dealing with myself. I was bad at dealing with people because I'd have temper tantrums or meltdowns or all these shameful things. But without having that experience, I wouldn't have such a deep understanding of what women go through, even while I'm coaching them on the bike. So I do know for a fact that going through depression and I had suicidal tendencies. I've hurt myself. I've gone through eating disorders. That was all very shameful to talk about. But now I'm realizing that that's very common and somebody needs to be a voice for it to make it a little more normal and to help people see that it's possible to work through it. So I don't think I would be nearly as passionate as I am about coaching mountain biking as a catalyst for growth and change and enlightenment into one's own life if I didn't have that experience myself.
So it is a superpower then. Look at that.
It is a superpower. I'm trying to hold on to it like that. Get in that power position.
That's it. I love it.
When ladies get nervous, power position. I got this.
I'm going to embrace the shit out of this, and it's going to be my superpower. That's the... I just think it's fascinating. I've been coaching for a very long time, and most people get very stuck in the tactical, technical, physical part of coaching. The how to do something, the what to do, the when to do it, the how to get fitter and stronger at it. And the thing I've learned over the past however many years I've been coaching for is, your brain is the volume control of all of those tactical, technical, physical things. Your brain will decide. I mean, you've raced, right? So I bet you've had a race where you've gone off the start and you think you're fit, but actually suddenly you don't feel fit anymore. Like your heart's pounding and the adrenaline's going, and all of that fitness that you thought you had is like reduced by 50%. Well, that's not a physical, tactical, or technical problem. That's something going on between your ears. And so my plea to coaches is maybe spend more time considering what's going on between people's ears than what's going on with their legs or their arms or any other part of the body, because probably the secret to their success actually is between their ears. Yeah.
Absolutely. You talk to these endurance athletes, like my friend Rebecca Rush, her nickname is the Queen of Pain. And, she has had tests done on her that your brain signals to your body, warning, warning, legs are burning, can't keep going, much earlier than your body actually will give up. And then that's an interesting thing that endurance athletes who have to keep pushing themselves past, most athletes have to push themselves past a point. But it's just interesting to know that the brain lies to us. That's something that I've been trying to understand, is that those thoughts in your head telling you to quit or give up or you're not good enough or that's scary, you can't do that. That can be lies. You don't have to listen to that. It's actually not you. Your core wants to be successful. It wants to push through pain. It wants to get to the other side, but your brain can lie to you in such a way that you believe it and you give up. And it's just such a weird thing to think about, that my brain and my body lies to me.
Well, it kind of does. Like the brain is a really interesting thing because it's evolved a lot, but it hasn't really evolved that much at the same time.
So it gets caught in these patterns.
Yeah, but it gets caught in patterns that could almost be 300 or 400 years old, because 300 or 400 years ago, if you were to exhaust yourself, like you've described on a couple of occasions in our conversation, there wouldn't be Gatorade, there wouldn't be an ambulance, there wouldn't be a hot warm bath, there wouldn't be a gin and tonic, there wouldn't, or like the guaranteed food or whatever it may well be that we've got today. And so the brain hasn't evolved to really recognize, I don't think, all of those things. It's just going, well, there's actually some research about it, but I read a few years ago, but it's just saying my job is to make sure you survive. And actually, my job is to try and get you to reproduce as well before you die. And that's my job. And so I don't want you to go and push to 98% of the tank empty. I want to leave 30% in there or 40% in there or more. So it's playing tricks on us, the bugger.
It does play tricks on us. It's amazing. But again, the outdoors can illuminate the truth in so many ways, oh, it's raining, I'm caught in the mountains, I'm going to die, versus I need to find my way out. I need to call for help. I need to do whatever it takes to get warm. Those are the two ways our brain can go. Our brain can just freak out and give up, or our brain can help us move towards safety. And it's just so interesting that if we've lived past lives, which I kind of believe in, our brain remembers some of that stuff, like I read this book called Many Lives, Many Masters, and it's a true account of a therapist tapping into someone through hypnosis that really kind of showed she may be aware of some of these past lives, her fear of water, she had a child drown or it was crazy stories. And it's hard to quantify that or measure that. But I do believe that our brains get stuck in patterns, like you said, from hundreds of years ago, that we have to work with whatever patterns our brain has formed, and being aware of it is step one. And that is what the outdoors can do for us. It really makes you aware of like, how am I handling this situation right now, where it could be life or death, where a lot of the things we deal with in real life aren't life or death. They're just thoughts that are causing this crazy reaction or emotional breakdown, where the outdoors, it's like an emotional breakdown. That's not going to get you out of there if it's raining and you're about to die. It's literally going to kill you. So again, back to that, why the outdoors is so important, I think, for people to start to understand the patterns of their brains. The outdoor illuminates it.
It's in a highly sanitized world. It's real. Like it's not like a lot of the rest of the world. Sometimes to me, when I'm not in the outdoors, feels like virtual reality. Like I could do this, but the worst case consequence really isn't that bad. And yet you're on your bike and you're going on a downhill section and it's quite technical. Like you get it right, or there could be a helicopter involved, or there could be much worse than a helicopter involved. And so I think one of the reasons why so many more people are getting into the outdoors at the moment is because it is one of the few real things left in the world. It's not sanitized, and you get it right. And if you don't get it right, the feedback is beyond honest. It's brutal.
Yeah. And I love every second of it. I love it.
Me too. I've just actually moved to a mountain plateau at about 6,000 feet down out of my office. Awesome. There's a big mountain. There's a big mountain, not quite as spectacular as that behind you, but almost. And forests. And
nice.
It's changed my headspace.
It can do that.
Oh, it's incredible. In fact, actually, I'll tell you what it's really done is it's actually reopened my brain to being creative again. Not in that arts and crafts type way, but in terms of that like solution, problem solving, like you need to do when you're biking, for instance. Like you've got to creatively find not necessarily the route, but your route from A to B.
Totally.
Like somebody who's 10 times better than you would hopefully be choosing a different route than you. Well, I don't know, maybe not, but they're willing to push something harder than maybe you would be.
Right. Choose your challenge.
That's it. Yeah, challenge by choice is a great coaching strategy as well.
Yep, totally.
I love it. So tell me, here we are today, but like, what are you seeing into the future for yourself and Ladies AllRide and Grit and your own biking adventures and passion? What's on the horizon?
Just continuing to do what we do. We're always trying to evolve and make our program better. We're doing a big push for diversity, equity, and inclusion. We had some deaf women come to our camp in Vermont, and we hired translators who could sign and ride bikes. And seeing that, trying to be a catalyst to open doors for people who might not think mountain biking is for them is really what I want to see Ladies AllRide doing, which I think it does already because a lot of women don't realize what they're capable of. But to be able to see more people who haven't experienced mountain biking reap the benefits of it is just something I'm so passionate about. But I also know that I'm nearing 50, I'm not a spring chicken anymore. And I drive back and forth across the country, and I have for 20 years now. I use my body a lot. I'm a hustler. I get in the van, I go to the next event, I get out of the van, I coach the event, I get back in the van. I slow down a little bit in the winter. But I know that there's probably going to come a time, just like most racers, where the body's going to tell me that I can't keep hustling like this. And so right now I'm just trying to live in the moment and be grateful that I have a strong, capable body and mind that can keep carrying me across this country and hopefully globally to keep inspiring women through mountain biking. And we'll just cross that next bridge when it's presented. I love doing speaking engagements and just being a voice on behalf of mountain biking to women about how life-changing finding something that you're passionate about can be. It doesn't even have to be mountain biking, but just I want to continue to tell my story and help other people see that they're not alone in this life journey to figure out what we're made of and just keep the wheels rolling forward.
Cool. Well, I just want to say thank you to you because there's not many people who come on are as open and honest about who and how they are as you have been in this. And most people view the world through Instagram, sadly, at the moment, and where everything looks pretty and glamorous and it's got a wonderful filter attached. And look how great my life is and how happy I am. And yet behind the scenes, that's probably or definitely not the case. And I think that's a trap. And I think that you're helping people avoid that trap and actually understand that they aren't alone and that they can do whatever they please. Just put your mind to it and go do it with a smile on your face. And that everybody's got demons. Doesn't matter what label you attach to it. Everybody's got demons. And the fact that you're willing to talk about yours creates the pathway for other people to talk about theirs. So thank you very much for that.
Thanks.
It's a pleasure. I mean, it's a gift that you've got that you're giving to the world, a genuine superpower. So thank you.
Thanks.
If people want to reach out to you and find you, contact you, book to come on a program, like where's best to find Lindsey?
Oh, well, Instagram. It's Ladies AllRide is our handle. I will answer your messages. Our website, ladiesallride.com, has all the information about what our camps are all about and where we go. Facebook, Ladies AllRide, Lindsey with an E at Ladies AllRide. But I would say our website has everything. You can link to everything from our website. And we're just a group of women. It's not just me. I've got 40 coaches around the world and 2 full-time employees. And it starts with us, it starts at the top with us showing women that women supporting each other is a really powerful thing. And that we've all learned and grown and evolved because of having a business and because of mountain biking. And we just want to keep showing more women what they're capable of by experiencing it themselves, So Ladies AllRide, because ladies should all ride together and the world would be a better place because there'll be more strong and confident women in this world.
I was about to say, God help us, but I think God maybe needs some help himself. I think that the more strong, capable people there are on planet Earth, male or female, who can do good by each other, I think the world will be a happier place. Cool. Thank you so much, Lindsey. Go on.
Thank you. I'm so stoked to talk to you.
Last thing. Do you have one message that you'd like to offer to the world?
I guess that we're all in this together. And the more that we can universally accept each other and be there to lift each other up and try to come from a place of kindness, if we could all get outside and use sport to challenge us and help us evolve, the more that we're just going to continue to stay on this same page, hopefully, so we can all work together to make the world a better place instead of sitting behind a computer complaining about it. Let's all get out and make it happen by working on ourselves first.
Love it. Thank you so much.